Hello, hello. My name is Brittany.
And I'm Kate.
And we are
The Fools.
Join us as we explore everything spiritual, astrological, and overall mystical.
Don't forget to follow your intuition, but more importantly, follow us at The Fools.
Welcome back to another episode of the Fools podcast.
We are here live in Zoom.
Yes, this is our first Zoom. You're a test buddy.
Yeah,
I work on Zoom, man. This is my life.
Yeah, you really do. So let's introduce our guest. We have Raven over here. Introduce yourself, honestly.
Yeah, it's probably
My name's Raven, just your friendly neighborhood witch. I'm an artist and an astrologer by profession, and I do lots of witchy stuff and mentor people on witchcraft.
We love that. If you want to find her, it's at the Midtown Mystic on Instagram. Do you have a website as well that people can find you?
Yeah, it's midtownmystic.com.
Okay, cool. So if you're interested in any of the things that we're talking about today or want to get your birth chart read, reach out to Raven. She's spectacular. She did both me and Kate's charts. Blew my goddamn mind. Mm-hmm. And did my mother's. If we're
bring it on home,
whole
girl.
Family.
Make it a family affair. Honestly, it's a great tool to understand yourselves and each other.
So what I love about astrology so much is I feel like it's a lot of people's gateway into spirituality. It was definitely mine, but I think so many people are already interested in horoscopes. I mean, even it used to be in like the newspaper, right? Like back in the day, it was like, oh, the horoscopes of the day or the week. So it's already something that the community as a whole has a little itch for.
Piques your interest.
Yeah. So it's a nice little like gateway drug.
It's a little tasty taste into the universe.
Yeah.
And it's usually accurate. I think that's why people are really intrigued by it, because horoscopes do always have like a little bit of truth in them. And you can't really seem to get down to the mystery of why this would be so accurate.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, why they are so accurate, what is happening in the stars in the sky, why it matters what fucking time you were born. You know the memes. They're like,
the who, the what.
If that girl is asking you your birth time, you better run.
It's so funny. Oh, I will say on top before we get into it though, a lot of this, I think people are so turned off from astrology and stuff is because they're like, oh, this doesn't dictate my life. In the back of your mind, always know you have free will. That is
always.
That is the human existence. So anything, if we're saying that your Saturn is in the 4th house and you're going to have problems here, there, and this and that, free will of you and the people around you are a huge play in all that. We're not trying to tell you how or what or who is going to dictate.
And I will say, as someone who received a reading from Raven, getting the astrology blueprint, she does say this is a blueprint. This is what would happen if you never self-reflected, you never did any self-work. This is kind of just like if you really just went on autopilot, these could be the options. So that is one thing to keep in mind as well when you're reading your chart and you maybe have some shit you don't like so much.
Yeah.
You're like, maybe I should think about that, but also maybe I am already working on those things. So
anyway, I wanted people to have that grain in their mind before we delved into it.
With that being said, go off.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to know that information because like Kate said, I write in there that it's a blueprint. You were always meant to have this information. It wasn't supposed to be hidden from you. That's why it is, ancient. They have been using this for a long time. This is so that you can see what's going on. You can measure your growth. You can see maybe what energies you need to balance out and work on. That's basically what the whole chart is it's letting you know, like, hey, you're out of balance here, or you have some lessons in this area. So I always highly recommend people look at their charts at least twice a year, typically on the birthday and on the new year. And it's a lifelong reading that honestly will evolve and change your perception towards the blueprint as you get older. And I was explaining this to Kate because these blueprints resonate with people a lot when they're older clients, because they're like, yeah, I noticed those patterns in my life. But when you're young, you haven't established all those patterns yet. Planets haven't activated. You haven't gone through some of the challenges of your life. So it really does matter what age you are when you receive the information. I think it's best to get it as early as possible. The youngest person I did was, I think, 14, and it was a game changer. Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Look at those little Gen Zers trying to be self-aware.
I love that.
They're amazing. Seriously. Well,
It's
so
fun.
astrology, we'll talk about what it is, because I think people kind of see it as this mysterious situation. But what happens is the moment that you are birthed, the moment that you take essentially your first breath of air or life essence, the planets or celestial bodies. So when I'm talking about planets, I'm actually talking about sources of information that are around our area. I call them logos, but they are almost creator gods or energetic blueprints. And depending on where they're located, when you're born, they will imprint the energy into your DNA, your soul, whatever you want to call it. And those are the patterns that you're going to carry throughout your life. And these patterns, you typically chose them beforehand, or at least that's what I believe in, is you chose the exact moment in time because it would have the patterns of the lessons that you needed to learn and the talents and gifts that you inherited. That's why there's a lot of ancestral lineage things coming down that you can see, especially in the fourth house, that's going to show you what's coming down the bloodlines and is imprinted in your DNA. So I think it's kind of a big deal, and it's super helpful to see what you're made up of energetically.
It's a very interesting point to talk about, because when you get into astrology, I was talking to my scene partner today because he was like, what are you podcasting about? So we kind of got into a little like talk about it. And it almost always wraps into like what you believe before you enter the world, because astrology, so much, like you said, we believe, the three of us, in soul contracts. So that's
Yes.
like how your soul is going to grow while it's on earth. So I actually wrote down while you're talking karmic lessons, because that's
Mhm.
something that you will delve into. Hi, Kyra.
That's Saturn right there. That's
Yeah,
gonna
and
do
those
all that
different
good stuff for you.
So it's weird because it's like, you know what lessons you want to learn while you're on earth, but it's our jobs, not our jobs, but it's our free will and us figuring it out that is up to us. It's not like we were like born and then it was like, here's what you have to do. Good job. Good
Yeah, and
luck.
you know what's
Like written out perfectly.
hilarious is you'll carry those same lessons over and over to the point where that's where something's fixed, like a fixed sign, or it's in a certain degree. That's how you know that you've probably carried the same energy and the same lesson through many, many lives and have not seemed to catch the hint yet.
Yeah, like you're just
and
not
so
getting it.
Does not compute.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
So if you want to get into astrology, I'm not saying like you have to believe in like reincarnation, but you do have to believe that like there is a reason, a rhyme and reason that you were born at this exact place, this exact time, with these people, yada yada. There's a
Yeah.
reason. It's all connected. You kind of have to believe it's all together on some
Yeah, I
level.
do think an element of spirituality is involved in astrology. And it just kind of goes hand in hand. There's some faith and trust in it because you're basically basing some things off of what you can't even see and energies that you can't touch or feel. So yeah, it does rely on faith.
Yeah, I love that. So do you want to tell people, besides reaching out to you and getting their whole birth chart read, which is literally life-changing, and I think that everyone should do it, but if you want to just dip your toes, do you have any like
Mhm.
sources that you would recommend to people?
Definitely. So for my number one chart reading website would be astrocharts.com. They're very accurate and they give you all the information that you need. You can also use Astrolabe, but they're missing your like Chiron and end nodes. So it's a little bit more helpful with Astrocharts. It's completely free. You can print it out. I literally use them as the basis for my readings that I do for other people because we're in the advanced age of not needing to use mathematics at this point to
My
create
God.
people's charts. Yeah, they used to do it by hand. That's wild.
That would take me, I would never be able to do that. I can barely multiply, if I'm going to be honest. So when you type that in, you do need to know your birth time, which unfortunately is kind of a difficult thing for a lot of people, which I wouldn't have realized.
You know what? That's the biggest obstacle. And I honestly feel terrible for people that don't have access to it. A lot of people that are adopted or, their parents just didn't have access to that information.
A lot
That
of rural,
can be really
wow, I can't say that.
Rural.
Areas. That word is we should take that out of the English language.
You used it.
I know, it was in my mind, but like my dad like grew up on a dairy farm and he doesn't have his.
You can still read it, but it's not, it's not as accurate. But you can read it, and usually you'll base it off of midnight. But
do you think it's better for people to base it off of midnight or to have their parents like guess? I guess if the kid's like 10, it's like, well, it's only 10 years ago. But if the kid is like 40 and it's like, fuck, I really don't remember.
Yeah, sometimes they're just like, I mean, it's helpful. I would always do it off midnight, but I would, it's important to know whether it was at night or in the morning. That's always helpful, because then you could do noon or midnight type of thing. It affects like which planets were above the horizon or lower. But a lot of astrologers will also, like, based on the personality, they'll try to arrange the planets where they think they would have been. But I don't play that game. If you don't have the exact time, I'm so sorry, but I'm not going to read your chart for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a safer bet to make sure you're not giving like the wrong information.
Exactly.
Where should we start now? Deciphering charts.
There's like
It's such
three
a
major
big
parts of the charts, though. I feel like
Because everyone knows the signs, so let's talk about that element of the chart.
mhm.
So the signs, the planets, and the houses. I think the most underrated thing that people don't pay the most attention to is the houses, because the houses can tell you so much. And the houses are what you're going to look at mostly when you're looking at transits, or like, say someone was like, hey, there's a new moon in Sagittarius at this degree. Well, how's it going to affect me? You would look into the house that your chart is in. So that one's underrated. And the houses can sometimes be a really big deal, especially someone with a stellium, or someone that has a lot of planets all in one house. That is going to put significant focus on that area of life. So Brittany, you have one really close to a stellium, don't you? But it's only 3.
Yeah, I think so. I'd have to look. Before we like get into it, I will say, when you're looking at your chart, and this is for people, if this is like your first time ever Googling your chart, it's like a circle. And then your planets, it'll tell you like, oh, the sun is a circle with a little dot in it. So you can look those things up. The houses are an outer ring. So you can, most of the time they'll be like labeled like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, they're always labeled for you. Everything is done really easily for you now.
Yeah. So just think about the circle with the houses around it, and the planets are inside of it at different angles.
Right. Yeah. And then what's really important about the houses is they're not all equal. So, well, based on whatever house system you're using, if you're using whole house system, all the houses are split equally.
Mhm.
But if you're using like the Placidus or a different one, which I use, the houses, one house could be 10 degrees and then another house could be 40 degrees. And so when you're just using your eyeballs, you can actually jack some stuff up because you're not seeing where the houses are correctly. Like, you're not able to see the exact degrees. So it's really important to know that the houses don't have to be 30 degrees. It's only the signs that are from 0 to 30 degrees.
Oh, that's interesting.
So is each person have different size houses?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And sometimes they are like really lopsided. Like, so normally it's split into 4 quadrants like this, and it's a circle. Sometimes the person's cross looks like that.
Oh yeah.
And
depending on the
they
rising,
have
right?
one house, right, that's just taking up quite a large portion of degrees. And so it really just depends on you guys. It depends on what's going on in there. And I think it's important to take note of for sure.
Interesting. Okay, so all charts have the 12 houses though, right? It's not necessarily
Always.
that you'll always have a planet per house. Like she said, that you can have like all your planets in one house, but the chart will always include 12 houses.
Always will include 12 houses. It will always include typically 11 planets, which includes end node as well. And Chiron, or what, I don't include a lot of other things. There's asteroids, and when you get into astrology, it can go even further. But yeah, what's important to know is there's 12 houses, and you're always going to have at least one open house because there's not 12 planets.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
I had like 3 open houses.
Oh, I have a shit ton of open houses. Half of my charts, like, nah, it's like No.
What does Brittany
Fuck
need
these
to learn
houses. No, it's because
Yeah.
well, the way you explained to me is I don't need to learn anything
in those
in
ones?
those because they're empty. So I'm actually really advanced. On the right side of my chart, but on the left side, it's like, girl, it's a
Work.
lot
You're
to learn.
struggling.
Yeah. I did
Yeah,
look up.
empty
I
houses.
have the 3 planets in Leo.
Yeah, is that what it is? Okay,
Yeah.
that's a lot. So that's 3 personal planets. Normally though, it's like 3 to 4, considering if it's in the same sign, that would be a stellium, and a stellium is really, really intense.
That's like it dictates a lot of like your
Yeah.
personality and how you live your life, right?
Yeah, it dictates a lot. And it usually is a sign that you have one mission in this life, and you're going to strive for that mission until the day you die. You will keep trying for it. It will always be on your mind. You'll feel pushed towards it. And a lot of like serendipitous things will happen to continue you along that line, versus some people are just learning about a multitude of things and are experiencing variety in their life.
Should we go through the houses
Yeah.
to see like what the general overall, we talked about this before we started recording. Every time we describe a house, a planet, or a horoscope, we are using the broadest, widest definition. Obviously, if you get a reading, it'll be way more in depth. But yeah, this is like the one
Quick notes
sentence
version.
synopsis. This is our like pitch deck.
Yeah, the one-liner.
Yeah.
When you read your own chart, or at least just look at it on astro charts while we're doing this, that's always really helpful, so you can kind of see and incorporate it. But the first house is one that a lot of people know. It's the house of the self. It's where your ascendant is always going to be at, and it's sort of a lot of people call it your ego, but really it's your sense of self. It's who you are. It's your physical appearance. It's how you're presented outwardly, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
I
then
think a lot of people
second
describe
house-
it as like a mask, which I always thought was weird because that's like kind of like then that almost feels like you don't relate to it, but you do.
Yeah,
You're
it's
rising.
sort of, I call it almost, this is my own personal interpretation, but it's almost your personality without anything affecting it. It's just like your natural personality. And then your ascendant is your attitude. So it can kind of flavor the entire thing when your ascendant is there. And it just depends. Everyone has different interpretations. And that's what's great about astrology, is one person's interpretation can really hit home and resonate with you when a whole lot of other people's don't. So
Yeah. Interesting.
and then so we'll go into the second house, which is, I always think of Kate because her Jupiter's in the second house, and I'm waiting for that to activate. And do
Interesting.
What
some
does that
good stuff
mean?
for her. So the second house is the house of resources.
Oh, I'm waiting for it to activate too.
Yeah, and you know how I'm gonna try and explain this to you guys, where this information's not coming out of anywhere. The first house is typically ruled by Aries, and Aries is that sense of self. It's a very selfish kind of vibe. It's related to the number 1, which is the first house. And then the second house is typically Taurus, which follows Aries, which is all material. It's money. It's a little bit shallow, materialistic. That's kind of what that second house is. It's the house of values. It's the house of resources. And so it kind of continues on from there, where the third house, which is Gemini, is the house of communication. It's the house of short journeys, like quick trips, and it is the house of siblings and neighbors. And the fourth house following that, we all know, is Cancer. The fourth house is an angular house. It's incredibly important. And it's the house of the mom, the house of Cancer. It is the home. It's where family trauma or family like gifts will come down from. It is the lineage, the blood, the bone. It's like all that kind of stuff. It's very feminine.
My
The
Saturn
fifth house
in
is
my fourth
Leo.
house.
Yeah.
It's extremely rude. Raven like read my chart and she was like, okay. Well, and I was like, okay, well,
Yeah, and I just have to say, if you have Pluto in the fourth house, I was telling Kate this, I'm so sorry for you, because that usually indicates pretty gnarly home life. Like if you have any malefic planets, bad planets in there, it's not really a good sign for your childhood, which would be Saturn and Pluto. So that's where you can kind of start to incorporate like, oh, that planet's in there, that planet's in there, and start to associate, because the signs that rule the houses are very important to know that it follows that line, because then it kind of just pulls from each other over and over again. And that's how you can see the repeating patterns.
It actually makes a lot of sense when you're saying like, oh, Gemini rules the third house of communication, because whenever people will be like, oh, this horoscope rules this planet, but your horoscope in that planet is this, it can get kind of like,
oh yeah,
it's a lot
super disorienting until you know, like by heart, or you're really writing it down, until you know what planet rules what house and what sign rules what planet. It can be really intense and hard to kind of untangle the information that's going on that it's giving you. The next house, the 5th house, is ruled by Leo, obviously, which is after Cancer. And that is the house of fun, the house of creativity, also the house of your own children. So it will have some aspects of like what your kids will be like, if you'll have kids, if it's going to be difficult for you to have children. All of that information is going to be in that 5th house for you. It's also one of the like sexual houses, but more in a fun, mischievous way, rather than Scorpio, which is like really deep down in the roots.
Kinky.
It's your hobbies. It's how you have fun. Got it at kinky.
it's really kinky. Cut the 6th house.
So kinky. Okay, so the 6th house is ruled by Virgo, and obviously is the house of work, which is why Virgos are workaholics.
Massively.
I'm just so actually like disappointed that I'm a Virgo. Like, I know I chose it, but like, ew. Couldn't I be the house of kinky? Like, I would like, why am I the house of work? I mean, I understand that it's reflected in my life a lot, but
Brittany had to get pneumonia to sit the fuck down.
That's so funny, because the 6th house not only rules work, but it rules your health as well, and is very much why Virgos are like, they burn the candle at both ends, where their body is like paying the whole toll of their workload kind of thing. So the 6th house obviously is not one of my favorite houses, but if you do have a lot of houses in there, it's usually a sign that you're in service to other people. A lot of people either in the service industry, it could be restaurants and things, but people that work in like shelters, people that work in those kinds of charity organizations, they typically have quite a few planets in that 6th house, because that's really what the 6th house is about, kind of thing.
It's nice.
So that's interesting. And then the 7th house, which is ruled by Libra, it's the house of relationships.
I didn't know that.
Not just romantic, but it does talk a lot about the romantic aspects. It's also like your interactions with people kind of thing. Libra's obviously
I only know that because my moon is in my 7th house, and that planet is the only one over there. She's alone.
It's like, hello, pay attention to me.
Yeah. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, and the moon is karmic, so that also indicates that you're working through some karmic things in your relationships with other people, which I think was in your chart as well.
Yeah, the moon is karmic. That's something to write down. I'm just hoping that whoever is listening to this has their chart open, so that they can look and kind of decipher, like, okay, well, how does this reflect onto me? So if you haven't done that, you should do that right now. Pause the episode and open up your astro chart.
Feel free to pause.
Also, an app that's really easy to use. I don't know how the interpretations are pretty broad. Like, it's like one sentence, but the Sanctuary app is nice because you can pull it up and look at your chart, house, and planets, and just like click on it, which is like, makes
that's
it
nice.
easy.
I don't think I've ever used it, but
it's nice. Like, if I see a TikTok where they're like, find your whatever, and I'm like, oh shit, where is it? I don't know. Like, that's what I do.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Even I have to like go back in my chart. It's not like you memorize all of it unless you're a Virgo. Like,
I was like, yet haven't memorized it yet.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so what's after the 7th house? The 8th house. This one is really good too, because this is usually will tell you how you die. The people that I've known that have died the way that it would predict astrologically.
This is also probably the scariest one for people.
I want to know.
Yeah.
I don't think you told me this. I
You
wanna
told me,
know.
and I was like,
Did what's your eighth house? Oh, I have Kate's right here. Let's find out how Kate's gonna die.
I
real
remember
quick.
mine is
Hopefully like in a romantic bed.
mine was not romantic. I don't have any planets in it.
Gemini,
Mine is the
lung
eighth house.
cancer.
Damn, dude. Bye.
Five. Does it have to be lung cancer, or could it just be like of the lungs? Like
It's the
something.
lungs.
Like you could
so
have pneumonia.
lung cancer.
I'm
yeah.
gonna stab
Flu-
myself right in the lungs.
Well, mine was throat because I have Taurus. There's no planets. It was Taurus and eighth, and you said like it would be something with my throat.
Oh, you're gonna say something
Or
that gets you killed?
obesity. No, I told
or
you
obesity, like I could get
too.
fat, like choking, or I could like eat too much.
diabetes. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, like that type of stuff. Or someone's gonna slit my throat from behind because I'll be in an epic battle of
Okay.
I don't know, survival. Who knows? I'm reading way too much fantasy,
Yep.
but
You never know. You never know.
Yeah.
But yeah, Gemini rules the lungs. So it's whatever sign is ruling your eighth house. Look up what the body parts are associated with it. Like Aries is associated with the head. So it would be like a head injury, or it would be blood loss, or
which one is peacefully in your sleep?
Yeah, what the fuck?
okay, that
Who
one's
is that?
mine, and it's a Pisces. And I'm either going to drown, overdose, or go very, very spiritually in my sleep. And I'm praying for the last one.
Wow, they're really like it could be really nice, or
Wait.
it could be fucking terrible.
We hope you don't drown. Stay out
that
of
sounds
oceans.
like a pretty shitty way to die.
Oh yeah, or sacrifice myself for someone, which I would like. I've always sort of, those sick, invasive thoughts that you're like, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's me. So I'm like, don't do it.
Super
Don't be a
interesting.
hero.
Don't be a hero.
That's so interesting.
Okay, so that was 8th.
Yeah.
Okay, eighth house also, besides death, it does rule sex. So this is where you're gonna see
It's funny that
Like,
death and sex would be
it
the
rules
same thing.
sex and mystery. So you're gonna see a lot of shadow in this eighth house. You're gonna see a lot of energy that may be underneath coming up, maybe some of your bad habits. It could be your sexual kinks. It's one of the more deeper houses where you got to just peel back the layers. And you could be studying your eighth house and the planets in it for quite a long time, honestly. Yeah.
You have planets
And
in
then
there?
I think I do.
you got a
Kinky
few-
ass bitch.
I'm
You
just
got
a
a
good.
few.
This whole podcast is just about our kinks. So I hope you guys are really ready for that.
Mars in the eighth house, that's a tough one.
Oh yeah, we know about that.
Venus is in your eighth
Venus, that's extra kinky.
That's sexual energy, bitch.
That's sexual
That's
energy.
I need kink too in my relationship. I need sexual exploration in my relationship.
And-
Okay, so ninth house. Or I'm like, tell us everything.
This is why it's important not to give your stuff away. Also, like, you really need to trust whoever's reading your chart, because I always make the joke that I burn your like file folder afterwards, because I will know a lot about you that might make you uncomfortable with another human being.
Wow.
Knowing that about you.
You know what's interesting is I keep seeing TikToks where people are reading celebrity charts. And I'm like, that is very invasive. And they
That's
did one
very
on
invasive.
they did one
Yeah.
on Tristan Thomas, the guy who cheated on Khloe Kardashian. And the girl was like, oh, you can see he's like a total sociopath. Like, look at these placements and blah, blah. And I was like, I mean, he's a shitty
Weird.
guy,
That
but
needs-
like, goddamn.
Spiritual ethics come into play, I
Yeah.
think, in that one.
Yes.
That was kind of rude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the
That's like I
clicks,
use- yeah,
the
I
views.
use my significant others for my TikToks, and I made sure to consent. Like, I got his consent before I posted that out there, because it's really like, even when I'm describing it to you, and I don't know if you guys had this experience because we are friends, but if I'm talking to you and we're like full on strangers and I'm telling you like, hey, you actually like this and that, and in your relationships you're kind of clingy, and you can start to put up those walls and defenses. And
Easily get offended if you're not ready
Mhm.
to deal with it.
yeah, and I try not to re-traumatize people. Like, I am trying to come from a trauma-informed place, and that's why I'll usually skip some stuff and let you read the full report on your own, and you can come back to me if you feel comfortable talking about it. And the eighth house is always one where it's like, I'm not going to go super deep, but I will in my report that I write for you. So
Hmm.
just something to think about. Okay, so the ninth house, we are in the ninth house, technically, like right now, like the ninth house of the year, the wheel of the year, it's ruled by Sagittarius, and it is the house of expansion. It's the house of growth. This is why Sagittarius rules Jupiter. It is when we are expanding our physical, mental, spiritual horizons. Higher education is incredibly important. Continual thirst for knowledge. It's a lot of philosophy. Gurus come with multiple planets in these houses. And it's sort of a house of adventure and spirituality. So it's one of my favorite houses, honestly. And I don't see a lot of people with many planets in them, besides Olivia, who she has quite a few in there, but she's a Sag sun. So we all knew that already.
I forgot to say this at the beginning of this episode. You also have a podcast called the Double Rainbow Podcast with the tarot reader that we had an episode or two ago, or the last episode. No, 2 episodes ago. Called the Double Rainbow Podcast, and you guys should definitely go check that out after this one. It gets nitty gritty. It gets into some deep spiritual
down the rabbit hole.
It's very interesting. So just check that out.
But the 10th house that comes after it, which of course I think of a friend of ours named Uis, is Capricorn. And Capricorn is the daddy. And so is the 10th house. The 10th house is about career. It's ruled by the father. It's about prestige. It's about basically our public persona. It's also going to let us know if we are going to be seen by the public, if we're going to be famous, if we're going to have a large career. A lot of that stuff will be indicated in the 10th house.
That's where I have my 3 planets in Leo.
Mm-hmm.
She gonna be famous.
That's why Raven was like, you go, girl. I was like,
yeah. And the fascinating part about the 10th house, which does involve a little bit of spirituality, is the midheaven is right on the cusp of the 10th house. The midheaven is considered really important. Not only is it your career, but in spirituality, whatever planet is closest to that. Edgar Cayce said that would be like your home planet or your home vibration. And so if you have like Venus or something like that, you would be from Venus, kind of thing. It's just fun to look at and see what is the closest planet to your midheaven. And it's also called medium coli, which is MC when you're reading the chart, which is really important. IC is the one opposite, which is mom. So dad is midheaven, mom is IC.
Isn't the midheaven also how you find star seeds?
No, the midheaven is really like going to let you know about your career more than anything. How you find star seeds would be if your Neptune and Uranus are conjunct within 10 degrees. And that typically happened recently. I think people that are probably 23 to 32 ish are going to be sort of that wave of star seeds that came in, but there's also a lot of indications with Neptune and other things like that would indicate a star seed or a walk-in or someone that is really just an old soul and is advanced and is getting on with business, and this is their last incarnation. So lots of indications there.
Which house are 11 now?
We're at 11.
11. Okay, so the 11th house is really interesting. It's the house of friendships. When you think of it, it's ruled by Aquarius, which the age of Aquarius is about unity. It's about brotherhood. It's also very futuristic, right? They're very innovative, very forward thinking. The 11th house is about your hopes, your dreams, your goals for the future. It's about your friendships, your community, and those kinds of things, and how you're going to possibly bring those hopes, goals, dreams, fruitions to reality. And whether it's through friends or not through friends. So that one's actually a big one. I think if you have something you want to do in your life, if you have aspirations, look at your 11th house, see if you need other people to do it. If you need your friends, if you need a network, see what's going on there in that 11th house. That's important. Ooh. Then the 12th house, this one is like I call it the most painful house. It is the karmic house. It's also the house of what is hidden from you. And even as an astrologer, I've been doing this a long time. I re-looked at my own house and I was like, oh, I have Cancer in the 12th house and I don't understand emotions. I literally don't understand how I'm feeling. I couldn't tell you if I'm happy, sad, mad, like I don't know. And that is because Cancer is in my 12th house. And so it's going to be whatever's hidden from you. If you had Aries, maybe you don't know where your drive comes from. You don't know what you're passionate about. It's hidden. And it's not hidden forever, but it's hidden until you go searching for it. And it's going to be under a lot of layers. You're going to have to do some healing. There's a lot of karmic things going on there in order for you to really uncover that aspect of yourself.
And that's why I like to hug Raven.
And she's like, why?
She tries to squirm away.
That's so funny because I thought the 12th house was spirituality, but I guess it kind of is in the sense of like, if it's a deeper part of you that you don't know, it's not like we were born knowing about it.
And it is the house of spirituality. I mean, you're right in that sense of it's ruled by Pisces, which is like the mystic. It's really the unexplained, right? It's the faith aspect, the what's going on that I don't know anything about, but obviously it's going on. And that's why it's the house of what's hidden and the house of karma. So if you have a lot of planets in that 12th house, that's some karmic baggage going on that is you're probably going to spend a lot of time figuring out.
I remember when we did our blueprint reading, you were talking about that and some of my karmic energies and whatever. And I was just like, wow, it's so funny. I just always blame my period. I was like, oh, I'm just a psycho because it's my period. Or like, oh, I'm feeling so like out of body. It's my period. Like that was like always my answer for everything. And then you're like, oh, maybe it's like bigger than just my physical body, but it also is probably my period.
I don't know. It can't be all month.
But so that's the houses. That's why they're so important, because they really are the same as the signs. It's just another language of the signs. It's another layer. And if you can understand the signs, which you usually can identify with a few, you can identify with the house that it's ruling at a minimum.
Well, it's interesting when you were explaining all of this, I feel like you also kind of went through the horoscopes without really meaning to, like explaining what each horoscope kind of like the signs, like, what they all rule or kind of make you feel. Because basically the signs are how you feel about these things or how you deal with them, right?
So the houses, like I said, are where the energy,
it's the area
is acting. Exactly. The signs are like the actual energy. They're how it's acting, like what it's doing. And then the planet is sort of what is happening to that energy. So it's kind of hard to explain, but some planets can withhold the power of a sign. So like Saturn, which is considered the dad thing, whatever, it can really hold back even the strongest sun, like even the strongest fire sign, it can really hold that kind of thing back. So it's how those energies interplay. And then the houses are where that dance is going on, type of thing.
Interesting.
I love it.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this Astrology 101 podcast episode with Raven. We ended up filming one super long episode with her that we're going to cut into a part 1 and part 2. So this is obviously part 1 where we focus on the houses and the signs and where you can look up your chart and all that fun stuff. And then part 2, we're going to delve into the planets and more fun things. So make sure you stick around to hear that next week. Also, make sure you reach out to Raven at the Midtown Mystic on TikTok or Instagram. She's always posting more astrology information if you're trying to look more deeper into your chart. And honestly, I really, really recommend you getting a blueprint reading at some point in your life. There's just no better self-reflection tool than that. So thank you so much, Raven, for being here today. And also make sure you listen to her podcast, the Double Rainbow Podcast, available anywhere you listen to podcasts, along with the Fools Podcast. We love you guys. Thanks. Bye.